We know the government doesn't need money to spend, so why does it tax? Governments exist to provide public services like the military, healthcare, and transportation networks. And this means the government has to provision itself by transferring goods and services from private to public domain. Today, this is done with a monetary system. It works like this. It begins with the tax levied by the government payable only in its own currency, such as the dollar. Think of a property tax, for example, where everyone with the house has to pay a tax or lose their property. This creates sellers of goods and services seeking dollars in exchange. Now, the people who the tax caused to be unemployed can be hired by the government and paid with as otherwise worthless dollars for their work. For a historical example, let's look at what happened in the 1800s during Britain's colonization of Africa and Ghana. Britain wanting to grow coffee. However, the local population had no desire to work for the British government, so the British imposed the hut tax, a tax on everyone's house payable only with British script. And if the tax wasn't paid, that British burned their houses down. The tax immediately caused what we call unemployment, people looking for paid work, and the British then hired them to work in the coffee fields. Lessons from Ghana. Lesson 1. The British spent their script before collecting taxes, making it clear they paid workers first. This same sequence occurs in Australia today. Government spending precedes taxation. Lesson 2. The British always spent more than they taxed, running deficits. This left people with excess script that hadn't yet been taxed, expanding money supply and savings. Deficits similarly add to Australia's money supply today. Lesson 3. The value of script was based on the work required to earn it from the British. For example, 1 coin per day's labor meant 1 coin, thus 1 day's work. So what does that mean? Assuming the only way to get script from the British is to grow coffee, some people would have to get script through other means. For example, if a chef wanted to get script, he'd have to get script from someone else who would be willing to work for the British growing coffee by selling him food in exchange for the extra money that the person earns for growing coffee. They come to a mutual agreement about the price, which today we call market forces, prices where buyers and sellers come together. However, if the British started paying 2 coins for each day of work, the coin would then be worth half as much. If you recall, the food that the chef was exchanging was originally worth a day's work. Since you can now earn 2 coins for a day's work, the price of the same amount of food would go up to 2 coins. The same is true in Australia today. Whether the government knows it or not, the value of the dollar is based on the prices the government pays when it spends.